What's going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with Sean Mitchell making his Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream debut. Sean, great to finally have you on here with us. You do all that hard work in the chat room. You've done the podcast. You do the playbook today. And now we get to see your beautiful face on the live stream. So break down your playbook and all the work you did today. How you feeling about it?
I'm feeling pretty good. There's not a lot of value. There's really no cheap value. So I know earlier in the day I said that it was probably going to be a Stars and Scrubs type of night, but now I'm kind of rescinding a little bit. I just think there's too much value in the middle tier to actually pay up for 2 or 3 stars and then trying to basically scrub your way down. So I feel like I'm changing up a little bit the more I look at it, but yeah. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And these smaller slates are always a little bit interesting to deal with. You know, the player pools are pretty condensed. And then you have a night like tonight where, you know, there's just stars everywhere. You have all the top guys pretty much. Anthony Davis is questionable, of course, for winning in that, but there's AD, LeBron, Harden, Westbrook, Kawhi, George, like Giannis, you know, you name them. Like all the top tier guys are pretty much on this slate. So then you got to figure out how you're going to fit them in there. There's not a ton of value, you know, like maybe a little bit will open up if AD gets ruled out. You can go ahead and sort of spend down at center, but they did, you know, bump up the prices of Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee from what they had the other night. So it's tough to really find some true value on this slate. So when you said fair and balanced, I kind of agree with you, and my lineup builds have somewhat trended towards that way. I haven't spent up yet on any of the higher guys. I'll probably get a lineup in there at some point. But a lot of my lineups has been in that, like, you know, most I spend up is maybe like 8,000 or 9,000, and I'm in that like 5K range for a lot. So I don't disagree with you. And these slates, I think it'll be interesting to see where the ownership's going to be today.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think you're going to have 1 star. I mean, you just got to have a little bit of star power. But I think like you said, there's enough in the middle tier to help you get around having to pay for 2.
Yeah, and there's no game that's like a true blowout in terms of spread either. I mean, you have Utah in Atlanta, 224.5 total there. Atlanta's getting just 6 points, probably because they're home. And you know, Utah themselves, you know, this year against the spread, you know, they're 11-16, so they don't really cover a ton. They're 5-8 on the road this year, so like that game could actually be a little bit more close than maybe we think. Lakers, Milwaukee, 226 and a 4.5 point spread there. 2 of the hottest teams really in the NBA going right now, up against one each other. Both coming off a loss though. Both just took L's in their last game. Brooklyn, San Antonio, 219.5, a 4-point spread. And then our late night hammer tonight, starting 2 hours after that Brooklyn San Antonio game, you have Houston Clippers for like the 3rd time this year, 235 and a 5-point spread. Both teams really going into that one fully loaded, playing really well as well. So it's a good slate. Let's jump into it though, Sean. Again, you did the playbook, so why don't we break it down at the top? With the point guard position, you do have Russell Westbrook. I haven't played too much Westbrook. I know you have definitely championed some of his games and matchups, but he comes in tonight, gets Trae Young matchup. You know, you have him as your top point guard. Why don't you kind of talk about why you're on him tonight?
Well, I just, you know, besides the fact that Dinwiddie's below him and he's just a little bit more pricey than Dinwiddie, I just think that he has a little bit more upside, obviously. We know that he's probably likely might get Pat Bev D, but honestly, I'm not too worried about it. We know that they have a history together against the defensive and whatever, but, you know, he only needs 46.5 fantasy points to hit value at 5X. He's topped that in, I think, his last 5 of 6 or so. Right. He's averaging right around 50 fantasy points over his last 5. So that's why I kind of picked him as my top spot. Obviously, with the big total on this one, we know it's going to be pretty fast paced. Both of these teams are in the top 5 in as terms of pace. So that's why I picked Russ as my top spot. Opposed to like Trae Young, I think Trae Young is fine, but he's a bit pricey. At 9.8 on DraftKings, I just couldn't go there, knowing that he would need over 50 to hit value. So that's kind of why I made the decision.
It's definitely something that we've sort of had trouble with, I think, in terms of like name value again, and I bring this up a lot, at least on the podcast. Like you see Trae Young, you see him priced up so high. The production has like largely been there more often than it hasn't, but you know, he really is for the most part like he needs 30 actual to, you know, to really help himself get there. He can do it. He takes a ton of shots, but
he does. I mean, the assist, you know, usually, but yeah, you know, you got to have a double with him at least in assists, and he doesn't rebound enough. Doesn't really do as much defensive stats as you would need, which Russ does. So obviously that's another big reason. It's because Russ does a little bit of everything. He fills up the sheet, and we know he can easily hit 50. So
Yeah.
That's where I'm at on the Russ with the Trae Young. But of course, I like Dinwiddie as well.
Yeah.
The guy's been a model of consistency. His floor is really good. He's a really good cash game play. I think his price is fine on both sides, and he gets a good matchup here. San Antonio, as I mentioned, they're allowing the fourth most fantasy points right now to that point guard spot over the last 5. He's has a nice little usage rate at 30.3%. So he's really good. I mean, he's been great since Kyrie has been injured. So Dinwiddie is probably the cash lock. Russell is probably more of the GPP play. That's kind of the way I'm angling it right now.
Have we finally turned the corner with DeJounte Murray in his playing time now? About 30 minutes in 3 of the last 4 starting. I think that's an indicator of the minutes that we'll see him play. And again, we talked about it before. We really need to start hitting on these price points with him because eventually he's going to start jumping up big time again tonight. Another really good value on DraftKings for him. At just the 5,700. I don't know how you don't go ahead and play. I mean, he took a decrease. He was 61 the last game against Houston, gave you 31 fantasy points, which is still 5x. Now he took a $400 decrease. I'm still buying in here against Brooklyn and DeJounte.
Absolutely. I mean, even with Spencer starting, the Nets have not been that great against the point guard spot. Again, Murray played over 30 minutes in his last 3 or 4. As I mentioned, he's had multiple steal games in his last 5 or 6, 2 and then 3 and 2 apiece, with at least 1 block in every game over his last 3. So he's getting a lot of stats. He's padding them really well. And again, of course, the biggest thing is he's getting those minutes that we were waiting to get him to have, and now he's getting them. So, yeah, you do have to play him right now, especially on DraftKings at 5.7K. I think that's just ridiculously priced. We've seen him go over 30 fantasy points in all 3 of the games that he's played over 30 minutes. So, hoping that he gets 30 minutes or more tonight, and he should definitely exceed that value, definitely at 5.7. He is a little bit more pricey on FanDuel, but those defensive stats help out quite a bit. So
yeah, I mean, that's the one thing we definitely always talk about DeJounte is that he gives you all those secondary numbers. And we saw him, giving for 40 fantasy point efforts in 20-minute games earlier this year. So, I think we can certainly go ahead and play him for sure. Dante DiVincenzo, price tag going back up on him, but he's starting. His usage rate is really strong, and the performance has been there. Goes up against the Lakers. Now, the Lakers do have a lot of guards that are good defensively. Not Rondo per se, but Avery Bradley, Danny Green, Caldwell Pope. Not that they're going to be the ones that are on Dante. They're going to be more concerned about Middleton and Giannis for sure. But, I mean, this could pose a potentially tougher matchup for him today. You do have him in the playbook because of the recent performances. How are you feeling about him confidence-wise tonight in this spot?
I really like the price, honestly. I'm not mad about his price at all. 54 and 52. He's not a big gap in between the 2 sites. As I mentioned, he's doing a little bit of everything. He has a real low usage rate, 15.3% in his last 2 games since he's been starting for Bledsoe, I say. But again, he's got a 27.1 assist percentage, so he's dishing the ball out quite nicely. He's also got 12.6 total rebound percentage, so he's doing a lot of good things to pad stat. So, or the stat pad, I should say. Sorry. Sure. And, the 25 and 30 minutes is really encouraging. So, at that price, I'm totally fine. We know even if he does likely to get Avery Bradley maybe, but Avery Bradley's likely going to be, like you mentioned, on Middleton or something like that. So, I think he kind of gets somebody that we're probably not worried about.
Right.
I'm totally fine with Dante here.
Now, I played Rondo the other night, obviously, when AD went out. I was surprised, that not a lot of people were on that train with me. His ownership was lower than I had expected. He also came off the bench, and there was a while where I didn't even think he was going to play the game. I was getting a little worried. The minutes, he only played 25 or 26, I think it was. With everybody healthy, I understand the under 5K price tag and the upside's great. If AD plays, are you still on Rondo? Are you more on him if he's out? What's your feeling here? Is it just because not a ton of volume, not a ton of value on the slate today? He does offer upside that makes him appealing to you.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. There's just not a lot of value, especially at the guard spot. So putting in a cheap Rondo, hoping that he gets 25 minutes, and it's not Eric Bledsoe playing for Milwaukee. It is somebody else who will likely be on him. We'll probably see that a little more.
George Hill is going to be
George Hill,
my boy.
And and I'm fine with that. I'm sorry, but I'm totally fine with the George Hill defense. Rondo he has so much upside when he does get, as we've seen him flash that upside. 48.8 against the Utah Jazz, really good, defensive team. Usually, I know they don't have Mike Conley, which is a big hit for them, but nonetheless, he's put up a couple 30+ pointers in his last 4 or 5 games, and then he's been consistent.
Yeah.
So I think he's fine. It's just really nowhere else lower than that I really wanted to go as far as the point guard spot.
Yeah,
it's just
I won't argue with you there. If we do jump on over to the shooting guard spot, obviously you have Harden. You and I were talking about it a little bit before we jumped on air. It's not that like we're not big fans of Harden tonight. It's just like if everybody is healthy, we think we're getting a full allotment of minutes out of LeBron or an AD or Giannis. And they all have that sort of upside that Harden can bring to the table, and you're going to get them at a discount. So are you – and again, I know the answer already, but like, are you paying up for Harden, I guess, outside of game stacks today?
If AD doesn't happen to play, I might happen to try to slip him in. But, we talked about it before we kicked off the stream here. It's just he's too pricey as far as on DK goes. I mean, he's a little bit more cost efficient, I would say, on FanDuel at 11.4, but at a whole 1,000 more on DraftKings at 12.4. It's really hard to fit him and get you some value and to be able to have enough upside to get you what you need tonight, I feel like, especially in tournaments. So being a tournament player, I'm going to be probably more than likely fading Harden, and I'm going to hope that AD plays. So that's kind of where I'm at on Harden right now.
Yeah, I hear you. Below them, we have Donovan Mitchell, starting at point guard. At the most, all that really means is like the ball's in his hands at least a little bit more. We've talked a lot about, and we'll get to them, I'm sure, how the assist numbers and who's really running the offense has sort of been like Bojan and Joe Ingles. But Mitchell still in a really great spot here up against Atlanta. You do have Ingles, who's a shooting guard, small forward. I think is he a shooting guard on FanDuel, or is he a small forward on FanDuel? I don't have FanDuel pricing. I forget exactly what he's got for pricing. Okay, so either way, it's still a really great play. This is somebody that I played a ton last year with Joe Ingles. Okay. Price is obviously on the way up because just the way he's been playing in general. Again, this Utah-Atlanta matchup, I really like the sort of a game stack part of. I think there's some good value on the Atlanta side you can take advantage of, and then of course we know all the sort of the stud plays over there on Utah. How are you feeling about this sort of next tier down of your shooting guards?
Ingles over Lou Williams for me, likely. I just feel like Lou has established a really good floor here, and we know that he has the upside, and he's played 34 more minutes in his last 4 games. Just been playing tons of minutes. He's getting really good looks. I know Rona's pointed out on the starting 5 that he's put up 33 assists in his last 5 games, which is really good. And of course, he's a really good shooter. He can score, he can take it to the hoop, and he can shoot the 3. So at that 5.6 price tag on DraftKings, I think he's just way too hard to pass up. Way too hard to pass up. It's a good spot, like you mentioned, against Atlanta. I don't mind Lou in tournaments, but I know we kind of talked about Lou a little bit before we jumped on here as well. He just, with all the usage that's being absorbed around him with Kawhi and PG and then Montrezl Harrell, which that's kind of a correlation between him and Lou anyway. But, still yet, he's had a couple down games, and even though he put up 41.8 against the Houston Rockets in this same setting a couple, I guess it was a couple of months ago when they played, or well, not that long ago. Nonetheless, they played earlier in the season. He put up 41.8. I want to say that was without one of the PG or Kawhi. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think one of them was not in.
I think George was sitting.
I think George was still sitting in that game. So that's kind of why and the bad thing is you won't find Lou Williams this cheap probably again. At 5.5, it's tough. But, again, I think Ingles is the play.
Yep, I like it a lot. Another guy that I do have in there is Kevin Huerter. The minutes are great. He played even in the blowout the other night and got his minutes, got his fantasy production. Under 5K for him is far too cheap. He's a guy that can pretty much consistently give you that 25 to 30 fantasy points on a given night. Really good secondary scoring option to Trae Young. So I'm a big fan of him. I got him in my lineups again on a night where we're looking for some value. Under 5K is basically where the value is tonight. If you consider given the other slates. So I like him a lot. I think he is perfectly fine as well. If you want to go over to your small forwards, I think this is where the really decision making comes into play. You have Giannis, you have LeBron. DeRozan is a shooting guard, small forward on DraftKings. I think he's a shooting guard on FanDuel. Middleton, I think he's same thing. I think he might be a shooting guard on FanDuel, but a shooting guard, small forward on DraftKings. So this is like a pretty loaded position. And then, of course, on DraftKings, Paul George is a small forward only. So, how are you deciding between this group here?
Well, a lot of what I'm going to do is very detrimental on the status of Anthony Davis, I think.
Yeah.
Again, Anthony Davis is just too cheap. I know we're getting to him in the power forward center spot, but, obviously Giannis is going to be the next play. I think, obviously, I would love to be able to fit LBJ and AD for the correlation, but there's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm just not – I guess I would rather play Giannis over LeBron tonight. If I have to pick one of the two or play a naked one, it's probably going to be Giannis. He's had a 45% usage rate over his last 5 games, which is totally insane. Fresh off a 76 pointer against Dallas. Everybody saw that. I was really high on him that game as well. I don't mind LeBron at all, but yeah, I'm going to go with Giannis in that one. Other than that, I think when you go down a little bit, I'm not sure if I like Kawhi or Paul George. It's really hard to pick between the two.
Right.
Both of them equally putting up good production. They're both getting really good numbers. They're
it's
sharing
really just
over
a salary thing, right? If you need to save a couple of bucks, you go play George. Otherwise, I think Kawhi, I'd probably put him a little bit over. But I don't know if you can really go wrong here.
No, not really at all. I guess probably in the next range, I'm either looking at DDR, DeMar DeRozan. I think he has a really nice safe floor. I think he's a good cash play tonight, obviously at 7K on DraftKings. We've seen him, be really good at home for sure. Gets a good matchup here against Brooklyn at home. He's been averaging right around 37 fantasy points at home this year. So nice little value on him. And then obviously Bojan, which he's power forward, I guess. So probably Middleton would be my next one. Yeah, that's probably how I would go. It would probably be Giannis, then DeMar, and then Chris Middleton would be my 3 probably small forwards that I would be looking at on tonight's slate.
Yeah, for sure. On DraftKings, obviously Bojan, small forward, power forward. I think he is small forward on FanDuel, but again, we'll talk about him right now because we're going there. Bojan, always a favorite of mine. Again, mid to 6K price tag perfectly fits into, I think, a lot of lineups tonight. Again, you're going up against Atlanta. There's no Mike Conley in that lineup, so for sure he works out perfectly there. If we are going up, look at the top, though, you talked about AD. If he's in, you like him a lot at the price tag. I agree with you 100% there. I think this matchup for him could be a little interesting. He is technically going to be paired up against Giannis. They're both 7 feet, long guys, long plays. But there are times where he shifts over to center, and Giannis does have those periods where he goes on the long change. We sort of talk about, how Joe Embiid will play the first couple minutes, sit for a while, come back and play, the whole second. Well, Giannis sort of has a similar sort of substitution rotation, which means you could have, AD out there against, Brolo and Ilyasova, and, he's going to go ahead and feast on that duo. Right. So I think AD is in a really good spot. But you and I are both on LaMarcus Aldridge tonight. On DraftKings, I'm slotting him in as my center. Obviously power forward, center eligible there. Power forward only on FanDuel, but a really good spot, I think, here against Brooklyn.
I agree. I totally agree. I love LMA. I think his price is just too fair. Of course, we know he's going to play a lot of center spot as well. Brooklyn is terrible against the center spot. They've been bad for years against the center spot, it feels like. And then you get, LMA, who's actually been playing quietly some of the best basketball of this season so far.
Right.
We know he has 40-point upside. We've seen it. He's put up 40 or more, 37 or more in his last 7 of 8 games. So 38 or more fantasy points in his last 7 of 8. He's just been playing really well. He's been playing really well at home. So I don't think he could really afford to as we mentioned, I don't think he's going to be very high owned. I think there are a lot of people are going to go up. They're going to pay up for the spot. There's just too much there. Even in the center spot, I think he's really, sneaky using there on DraftKings especially. So I'm a big fan.
What other power forwards are on your radar today?
Well, we already mentioned Bouillon, and I know we talked about that one. Definitely a big fan of him. I'm not exactly crazy about his price at 6.9 on DraftKings. But, back-to-back 40-plus games, I think he's totally fine there. Of course, he gets a great matchup. Jabari Parker defense. We all love that. Yeah. Other than Bouillon, PJ Tucker I think is really interesting. We know the Clippers struggle against bigs as well, and he's been playing a little bit of center. I mean, I know with Capella back, he's not going to play hardly any, but still, even playing at the 4. It was noted, he's had a 19 rebound game. I think that might have been a game that Capella missed, but obviously in his last 2 or 3, he's had 11 or more. So. He's been doing really good on the blocks, been rebounding really well. That'll help him, obviously, tonight, increase his value. And then, of course, on DraftKings, I really like him because of his 3-point upside. So PJ Tucker's a decent play for me, especially at only 4.7 on DraftKings. I think he's just too cheap. We know he's going to play probably close to 40 minutes like he does every game. So that's probably one that I'm looking at.
Do you think he defends Kawhi or George? Or do you think they just go whoever's hot, they just switch him on to? Because one of those guys is then going to get like either Ben McLemore or like house defense. So
yeah, I think they put him on Kawhi is my guess. But I could easily, which that's what I'm saying. Now Kawhi's small forward, power forward on DraftKings, where just a week ago he was shooting guard and small forward. So
DraftKings needs to go away with their multiple position eligibility, in my personal opinion. So
that's the question. Has PG been running the 4 the whole time, or do they swap off, or because I know Kawhi was playing power forward before PG came, so.
I'll go ahead and check Basketball Reference, so you can go on talk. We'll see what we got as their positions here. Let's go, Paul George.
I think Taurean Prince is interesting for tournaments. Probably not just a huge play on that one, but I think he's interesting.
Yeah, GBP, he's pretty solid. So we got Paul George at 71% power forward, 29% small forward, according to Basketball Reference. Let's see what we got Kawhi priced out at here for minutes. Kawhi is 80% small forward, 13% power forward, 8% shooting guard.
Okay, so I guess that settles it then. So, likely he'll be on George then. So that definitely does leave Kawhi open to some further interpretation there.
Yeah. Certainly it's not out of the realm that PJ Tucker could switch. I mean, Tucker's not like this huge power forward that can't play the 4. So,
yeah, I totally agree.
Centers, Clint Capella has dominated this matchup, but now we've seen other guys on the Clippers. The Rockets rather getting a bunch of rebounds, kind of cutting into his value. I think this center position tonight is kind of like I don't love it. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of where center's at tonight. How are you feeling about it?
Well, I only have 4 centers in the playbook for a reason, and that's because I had the same thoughts. I don't really want to punt. I don't. Obviously, you shouldn't be punting the center spot tonight. There's just no reason to do that.
Then maybe you could punt it. Maybe.
Yeah, if AD is ruled out, you can look at a JaVale McGee, or, we talked about that already, Dwight Howard. Probably JaVale McGee is probably going to be the way to go if AD does happen to get ruled out. But, if he is not ruled out and he plays, being able to play him at both power forward and center spot on DraftKings obviously is easier. But, on FanDuel, that's going to be a little bit tougher. So, of course, I got Capella as my top center. I feel like he is very warranted there. I don't mind Rudy Gobert. I think he's a decently fine cash play. I just think Capella has just a little bit more upside, knowing that he has a 20 rebound upside. Not saying that Gobert doesn't, but it's just the fact that Rudy's on the road, and there's just so much other places to attack Atlanta on, especially the guard play, small forward and up. So for me, it's going to be Capella, Gobert. I really like Montrezl Harrell as well. I think he's going to have to play quite a bit to contend with Capella as well. So I really like that stack right there, the 1-1. And then, of course, if I'm going to go lower, it's going to be DeAndre Jordan. I've been on DeAndre Jordan for, a short minute now. He's been playing really well. He's put up 25 or more fantasy points in his last 4 or 5. He isn't playing a ton of minutes, but the production's there. He's coming around. of course, and he's knocking out some double doubles, so that's always good stuff.
It is. Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, like I said, I actually have thrown Aldridge in my center spot over on DraftKings tonight. I just, to me, there's just not a ton of like overly appealing spots. I've toyed with Gobert just because, again, we like going centers against Atlanta. Whether it's Alex Len or Deontay Jones, rather. That's a really good spot. And it is a closer game.
No argument.
Yeah. So I mean, like. Yeah, I think there's potential, and it seems like when we're usually off Gobert is when he goes off too, right? Like when we're not thinking about it, it's when he smashes. So I don't mind it. And you were right with Jordan. Again, he's someone that has just been very consistent lately, even with his sort of 20-minute a night role, just being very active on the glass, and he can block shots and stuff still. So I don't hate it. It is a little bit of a later roster lock today. It's 7:30. Right? It's a 7:30 start time. You have 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central where you're at.
Time to think.
Yeah, time to hopefully get some injury news. Lakers are playing, at the 8 p.m. Eastern game, 7 p.m. Central game. So let's get that AD news out there. Hopefully, we'll be able to, adjust our lineups. They're giving us some extra time. But Sean, before we jump back into chat, any final thoughts here?
I'm good, man. Like I said, I just need that news. That's all I need. And of course, I'm working on the example lineups. I already have those basically ready to be published. I'm just kind of waiting to see if we get any news. So look for those probably within the next 30 minutes.
All right. It sounds great. Sean, great to have you on. Can't wait to obviously have you on more now that we got your whole setup. And maybe you can wear a fantasy alarm hat next time. Because the chat is obviously ripping into you. You're wearing the shirt, though.
I'm wearing the shirt.
Yeah, you're wearing the shirt. So I don't know. We'll ignore all the hecklers we got out there in our chat right now. But all right, everybody. We'll talk to you. I know James in there. We'll all be in there to help you out. Good luck tonight. Let's go win some money.